Have battlefield lasers finally arrived? Well, something weird is happening in military technology. After decades of defense contractors promising laser weapons with all the confidence of a guy selling miracle vitamins on late-night TV.
Slap chop, you're gonna be in a great mood all day.
Lasers may finally be becoming useful on the battlefield. Not necessarily as lightsabers, not as Star Wars cannons, not as a handheld rifle that vaporizes people from a kilometer away. No matter what some very excited Chinese press releases claimed a few years back, the real breakthrough is much less cinematic and much more consequential. Laser weapons are becoming useful because modern war has become crowded with cheap flying junk, drones, rockets, mortars, loitering munitions, slow aerial threats that don't always justify firing a missile that costs more than your house, your truck, and possibly your neighbor's bass boat. So, no, laser weapons aren't replacing missiles, rifles, or air defense networks. They're becoming very disciplined accountants with a death ray. Hey friends, Wes here, U.S. multi-branch veteran, defense journalist, and your personal military tech guide who you can carry around in your pocket. Today we're talking about laser weapons. Pew pew pew. The real ones, the fake ones, and the almost real ones. Because Iron Beam, Britain's DragonFire, France's HELMA-P, the US Navy's HELIOS, and China's alleged handheld laser rifle all point toward the same conclusion. Laser weapons aren't having a Star Wars breakthrough, they're having a target selection breakthrough. And that distinction is everything. So why have lasers always been hard? Well, the appeal of laser weapons has been obvious for decades. A laser travels at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. It doesn't need a conventional magazine, it can be precise, repeatable, and, in theory, far cheaper per shot than a guided missile. Now that sounds extraordinary right up until reality shows up wearing steel-toed boots. Lasers need power, they need cooling, they need beam control and time on target. Rain, fog, smoke, dust, atmospheric turbulence, target movement, and target material all degrade performance in ways a rifle round simply ignores. A bullet doesn't care if the air is humid. A laser absolutely does. And unlike the movies, most military lasers don't instantly convert a target into a glowing pile of regret. They require dwell time. The beam has to hold on a single spot long enough to heat, to damage, to blind, or to burn through the target. Against the right target, that works beautifully. Against the wrong one, you've built a very expensive flashlight with military branding. This is the engineering wall that has frustrated laser weapons programs for 40 years, and it explains exactly why the targets that now make sense for lasers are so specific. Which brings us to China's alleged laser rifle, because it is a perfect case study in how not to think about directed energy. In 2018, reports out of China described the ZKZ-M500, a rifle-sized laser weapon, sometimes called the laser AK-47. The claims were extraordinary. Rifle weight, invisible beam, hundreds of meters of range, capable of igniting clothing or skin, powered by a lithium battery pack, supposedly able to fire more than 1,000 shots. Some reports described it as non-lethal. Others said it could burn targets. Technical observers were skeptical immediately for straightforward reasons. A weapon that small would face catastrophic problems with battery capacity, heat management, beam quality, atmospheric losses, and the dwell time required to actually damage a target. There's a reason most credible laser weapons in the world are mounted on ships, vehicles, or trailers, or fixed installations. They need power generation, they need active cooling, they need sophisticated tracking systems, and physical space that a rifle chassis can't provide. The ZKZ-M500 mostly lives on as an internet legend, a warning label, and a standing reminder to keep a calculator nearby whenever somebody says death ray. That said, none of this means China is ignoring directed energy. China is actively pursuing counter-drone lasers, sensor dazzling systems, and anti-optical effects. The skepticism is not about Chinese ambition, it's about whether that particular rifle ever existed as advertised. Look, I spent years working around airborne sensor systems, which gives you a particular appreciation for what it actually takes to track, classify, and engage a moving target. The gap between This laser can produce the energy, and the laser can hold that energy on a fast-moving target long enough to matter is enormous. And it's the gap that has eaten procurement budgets for decades. What's changed recently isn't the physics, it's the target set. Ukraine has made the core problem impossible to ignore. Russia launches drones and missiles in massed waves. Ukraine has to decide in real time what gets Patriot, what gets NASAMS, what gets IRIS-T and soon SAMP-T-NG, what gets Gepard autocannons, and what simply has to be survived. Every interceptor has a cost. Every magazine has a limit. Every radar can be saturated. Every crew eventually gets tired. When a Shahed drone costs a few $1,000s and the interceptor costs hundreds of thousands, you're not running an air defense network, you're running a program of accelerating financial self-harm with radar. Laser weapons are attractive precisely because they offer a different cost curve. If the power source is adequate and the cooling holds, a laser engagement can cost a fraction of a conventional intercept. That doesn't make lasers a replacement for missiles, it makes them a complement, handling the cheap, the slow, the low-end threat, so the expensive interceptors are preserved for the targets that genuinely require them. That is the real laser breakthrough, not a new weapon category, but a new answer to a cost problem that drone warfare has made existential. Iron Beam is the cleanest real-world example of where this is going. In December of 2025, just a few months ago, the Ministry of Defense and Rafale delivered the first Iron Beam system to the Air Force, with the system entering operational service around early 2026. It's designed to integrate into layered air defense alongside Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow, and that layered logic is the point. Iron Beam is not replacing Iron Dome, it's joining the stack, taking over the engagements where laser economics make sense. Rockets, mortars, drones, low-end aerial threats, so the interceptor inventory survives for the complex. Britain's DragonFire follows the same logic, applied to naval warfare. The UK Ministry of Defense announced in November 2025 that DragonFire had successfully engaged high-speed drones during testing, with over £300 million committed to fielding the system on Royal Navy vessels, potentially including Type 45 destroyers by 2027. A ship is actually a near-ideal laser platform. It has power generation, space, and cooling capacity that ground vehicles struggle to match. It also has a serious magazine depth problem when cheap drones and cruise missiles arrive in volume. A laser that handles a meaningful fraction of those engagements preserves the ship's missiles for the threats that demand them. That's not magic, it's just useful. And then there's France's HELMA-P. It addresses the same threat set from a ground-based posture. Silas describes it as a counter-UAV hard-kill system with a range from 1 to several kilometers, offering effects ranging from optical jamming through to full target destruction with no conventional ammunition to manage. France reportedly deployed HELMA-P for security operations around the Paris 2024 Olympics, and subsequent reporting has confirmed ranges exceeding 1 kilometer against drone targets. Then there's the U.S. Navy's HELIOS system aboard the USS Preble, shot down an aerial drone in 2024 testing and later neutralized 4 drone threats during counter-UAS demonstrations at sea. So across 4 different countries and 3 different platforms, the target set is consistent. Drones, small aerial threats, counter-UAS, this is where lasers are becoming real first. The Army's experience illustrates how much hard engineering remains, though. The 300-kilowatt Valkyrie program, years in development, was recently reported as no longer on track to transition into a program of record. That is not an indictment of laser weapons broadly. It's more of a reminder that laser systems live in the genuinely difficult space between physics, logistics, and procurement reality. A system can work in testing and still be too expensive, or too bulky, or too maintenance intensive, or simply wrong for the force structure that needs to field it. Welcome to defense acquisition, where promising ideas go to be loved, studied, renamed, restructured, and occasionally buried with full honors. The Pentagon is also reportedly examining a joint laser weapon system tied to Golden Dome missile defense concepts. A containerized design scaling beyond 300 kilowatts, potentially aimed at cruise missiles and more advanced threats. That represents the frontier. Counter-drone lasers are the near-term practical problem. Counter-rocket and counter-mortar systems are harder Counter-cruise missile lasers are harder still. Ballistic missiles and hypersonic weapons are in a fundamentally different league. Speed, range, required energy, and targeting time all compound in ways that current power and cooling technology can't yet answer cleanly. A drone swarm doesn't care about your procurement philosophy. It cares whether something can kill it before it reaches your radar, your fuel truck, your command post, or your ship. Every cheap threat that forces an expensive intercept is a small victory for the attack ledger. Laser weapons are the defender's answer to that attacker's math, a way to kill low-end threats cheaply and repeatedly, and without depleting the high-end interceptor inventory that exists to stop the things lasers genuinely cannot handle. The future air defense ecosystem will be layered. Missiles, guns, electronic warfare, decoys, of course, drones, and lasers all occupying different cost and capability bands within the same defensive architecture. No single system wins. The stack wins. So, are laser weapons finally about to work? Well, yes, with a large asterisk, and possibly a lawyer nearby. They work when the target is slow enough, close enough, fragile enough, and cheap enough to make a missile intercept economically irrational. That means drones. It means some rockets and mortars. It means sensor dazzling and ship defense against certain aerial threats. It does not mean infantry squads trading rifles for laser carbines, and it does not mean an admiral dramatically vaporizing a missile salvo while Hans Zimmer loses his mind in the background. The death rate era has not arrived the way science fiction promised. What has arrived, though, is something arguably more important: a practical, deployable answer to the most pressing air defense problem of the current decade. Laser weapons aren't magic, they are math, and on a battlefield defined by cheap, automated, exhausting aerial attack, math kills. That is it for today, my friends. Be sure to subscribe. Subscribing is the best free way to support these videos. Doesn't cost you anything. If you like the military analysis without the corporate fog machine, subscribing means I don't have to go sell my body over on OnlyFans. Channel memberships are $3 a month. Written work lives over at Substack, or you can find it at wesodonnell.com. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.